The day they buried my twin sister, Kevin sat by her grave for 3 days, refusing to eat or drink. Everyone in the village said what a tragic love story it was. Even my own mother demanded to know why I had to steal Kevin from her. It was like everyone chose to forget that Kevin had been my husband for 32 years. At midnight, I stumbled across the main road in a daze. A truck came speeding toward me. I could have moved, but I didn't want to anymore. Kevin pushed me out of the way and collapsed in a pool of his own blood. He begged me if there was a next life, to return him to my sister clean and whole. Clean? I laughed, my mind fracturing. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in the winter of 1977, at the very beginning of the life that had been stolen from me. 1. Clara, are you really breaking up with Kevin? Besides your sister, he is the only other person in this village who got into college. He is the best catch around here. Jessica whined, shaking our mother's arm. Mom, I'm going off to college in the city. I can find any man I want. Why would I get stuck with a country boy like Kevin? Seeing our mother start to soften, Jessica pressed her advantage. It's not a total loss. We should keep it in the family. My sister is single, right? Why not set her up with Kevin? No, absolutely not. Mom waved her hands, her tone firm. Letting you take your sister's spot in college is one thing, but this with Kevin is out of the question. The whole village will laugh at us. Mom. Jessica threw herself toward the wall in a dramatic display. If you don't agree, I'll just bash my brains out right here. Mom rushed to hug her from behind, her voice choked with sorrow. Oh, my sweet girl, you'll be the death of me. Fine, I agree. Is that what you want to hear? I agree. I stood outside, watching the whole performance through a crack in the door. So that's how it happened. That's really how it all began. In my past life, I had feelings for Kevin, but I never once said or did anything out of line. When I found out he and my sister were a couple, I was heartbroken, but I never let it show. I went out of my way to avoid him, never even initiating a conversation. But one day, when Kevin came over looking for my sister, the villagers somehow burst in and caught us in bed together. It was all a setup, orchestrated by my dear sister and my loving mother. And I spent my whole life drowning in guilt over it, even giving my precious spot at Georgetown to my sister as penance. She became the college student, taking my name, Clara, for herself. I was left to take on her name, Jessica, and marry Kevin. So they had been scheming to steal my future all along. Oh, my dear sister, you can have the man. But my spot in college? I'm taking it back. I had 1 month until I could leave this village for Georgetown. 2. Clara. I turned at the sound of my name and saw Kevin standing not far from my house, waving me over. He was handsome and tall, the kind of guy girls easily fell for. But all I could see was his face, covered in blood, begging me to return him to my sister. Clara, I'm calling you, didn't you hear me? When I didn't respond, Kevin strode over, grabbed my wrist without a second thought, and started pulling me toward the woods. I ripped my hand away and spat right at him. Kevin, if you're sick, go see a doctor. What the hell are you doing, dragging me off like a crazy person? Don't you forget, you're my sister's boyfriend. Kevin froze, studying my face. I knew the moment he called my name that he had been reborn too. I hated how well I knew him. But clearly, he didn't know me nearly as well as I knew him. He quickly concluded he was the only one who had come back and was practically buzzing with excitement. This time, nothing would stop him from being with Jessica forever. As I turned to leave, Kevin's voice dropped low behind me, as if talking to himself but also warning me. Clara, you can think I'm talking nonsense or that I've lost my mind, but I have to say this. Stop liking me. I don't like you one bit. The only one I love is your sister. If I were to marry you, I'd get a vasectomy. I would never give you a child. We would be miserable together for the rest of our lives. He really knew how to twist the knife. In my previous life, I never had children. I went to the hospital countless times and tried every folk remedy for fertility, once losing 30 pounds in a single month from the stress. Back then, Kevin would hold me and say he didn't want kids anyway, that just the two of us would be enough. I actually believed I'd married a good man. And I poured my heart and soul into him and his family. But it turned out he was the reason I could never get pregnant. How dare he spend our last life blaming it all on me? People aren't just bad, they can always be worse. I didn't stop walking until I had shut the courtyard gate behind me. Then I slid to the ground. I touched my face. It was wet with tears. If you didn't love me, why did you marry me? To bully me, ruin me, and squeeze every last drop of value out of me? And if you didn't love me, why did you push me away? Why did you use your life to save mine? Mom's calling you to come make dinner, Jessica said, walking out. She completely ignored my distress and just yelled at me. I looked up at this twin sister who shared my face but not my fate. Jessica had always known how to be cute and charming, while I was quiet and rarely smiled, never as popular with the adults. My mother loved parading Jessica around the village, soaking in the compliments. Mom raised her to be fair-skinned and delicate, with a spoiled personality. I was the budget version of her, darker, thinner, and worn out. What are you looking at? Jessica asked strangely. I wiped my tears and fought back. First of all, I'm your older sister. Show some respect. Second, cooking isn't just my job. You can make dinner too. I stood up, shouldered past her, and went straight into the house. I finally understood. In my past life, I was too soft, so everyone walked all over me. This time, I was going to be a firecracker. Anyone who messes with me is going to get burned. 3. Clara, I must be getting old. I've only done 2 days of housework, and my back is already killing me. I glanced at my mom. It wasn't her back that was bothering her, it was her eyes. I had been helping with chores since elementary school, and became the main person responsible for them as I got older. Now, after just 2 days of rest, my mom was looking at me with nothing but disapproval. But Jessica had never so much as picked up a spilled bottle of soy sauce in her life. Why didn't Mom ever say anything to her? When I didn't take the bait, my mom threw down her kitchen knife and pointed a finger at my nose. Clara, I see you've gotten a big head just because you got into college. You want to do chores, you want to work in the fields. Are you trying to start a rebellion? Maybe I should just let Jessica go to college instead of you. So that was her game. Fine. I can play that game. I ran out of the house crying and shouting, I can't go on. I finally got into college, and my mom says I can't go, that I have to give my spot to my sister. Just let me die. Clara, come back. We can talk about this. My mom yelled, chasing after me and trying to shut me up. Stopping was not an option. Dying was definitely not an option. I ran a full lap around the village, making sure every single person knew just how biased my mother could be. My biggest mistake last time was being a doormat, keeping everything bottled up inside. Not this time. A war of words? Easy. When I figured I'd made enough of a scene, I slowed down and headed for the riverbank, where a kind neighbor, Mrs. Wong, quickly caught me in her arms. I buried my face in her shoulder and sobbed, repeating the story of my mother's favoritism over and over. My mom tried to drag me away several times, but Mrs. Wong blocked her each time. This is ridiculous. The village chief, Mr. Lee, emerged from the crowd with a stern face and scolded my mother. Brenda, did you really say you were going to let the younger sister take the older one's place at university? My mom tried to argue, but I just wailed louder. The villagers started murmuring, criticizing her and my sister. My mother's face turned beet red. She cared more about her reputation than anything, and now she lost it completely. She looked at me pleadingly, but I just kept crying. She looked over at my sister, but Jessica, always so careful about her own image, hid in the back of the crowd, avoiding her gaze. Finally defeated, my mother mumbled, I was just joking with Clara. Joking? Is that something to joke about? It seems to me that since your husband passed, you've been doing a worse and worse job as a mother, Mr. Lee said, laying down the law. Don't you ever mention this identity-swapping business again. It's illegal. Yes, I understand, my mother quickly agreed. My eyes cut through the crowd and landed on my sister, whose face was twisted with resentment. I knew from her expression this wasn't over. Growing up, anything that was mine, if she wanted it, she could just take it. 4. That evening, my mother did something unheard of. She boiled 3 eggs. 1 for her, 1 for my sister, and 1 for me. In the past, she always boiled 2, saying they were for my sister and me. But I always felt bad for her and gave her mine. It turns out the best solution had always been to just cook 3 eggs. Jessica, are you home? Kevin's voice called from outside. Jessica shot me a triumphant look. Her head held so high she could have touched the sky, and puffed out her chest as she walked out. An involuntary pang of pain shot through my chest. I told myself it was just withdrawal. After all, I'd been married to Kevin for 30 years. Even in a pile of shattered glass, you can find a few specks of sugar. Clara, don't be mad at your sister. You know how she is, my mother said, trying to smile at me. There was a question I'd held in my heart for a long time, and I finally asked it. Mom, I was born only 1 minute before Jessica. Does that minute make such a huge difference to you? You've told me since we were little that I'm the older sister, that I have to let her have her way, take care of her, and bear a sister's responsibility. But I'm only 1 minute older. Can't you just stop being so biased? My mother's eyes reddened, and tears began to stream down her face. Now she was the victim. How am I biased? Your father died young, and I had to be both mother and father to you too. It wasn't easy. And now you're blaming me? Will you only be satisfied when I'm dead? The old me would have already been on my knees, apologizing. But in my past life I learned a new term, PUA. My mother was gaslighting me. She saved all her tears for me and all her smiles for my sister. No child should have to bear the weight of their parents' negative emotions. Seeing me just stand there, arms crossed, watching her coldly, my mother's tears dried up. She got up and started washing the dishes. Jessica came back in, glowing and holding a box of pastries. Kevin said he needs to talk to you. She saw me still sitting on the stool with no intention of going out to see him, and got agitated. Kevin is waiting for you outside. Why are you being so rude? Aren't you going to see him? I gave her a cool glance. Let us just say, even if you were married to him, which you're not, what law says I have to see my brother-in-law just because he wants to see me? Jessica, used to getting her way, just grabbed me and started dragging me outside. Caught off guard, I was actually pulled out into the yard. 5. Kevin, my sister is bullying me. Kevin comforted Jessica with a pained look, then turned to me with disapproval. Clara, can't you, as the older sister, stop bullying your younger sister all the time? I rubbed my wrist, which Jessica had turned red, and hid my hand behind my back. I looked down, swallowing the bitterness in my heart. When I looked up again, my face was cold and hard. This coldness was my disguise, my armor, the last shred of my pride. This is our family's business. What does it have to do with an outsider like you? Kevin was shocked. Clara, how can you be such a despicable person? You bully your sister, and when I try to reason with you, you act proud of it instead of ashamed. Right, I'm despicable and you're noble. I wouldn't want my despicable self to taint the sight of you two noble people. I turned to leave. Kevin grabbed my wrist, and I hissed in pain. He let go, his voice filled with concern. What happened to your hand? None of your business. If you have something to say, say it. I pulled my hand back, but my foolish heart softened for a moment at his concern. Kevin's eyes were still fixed on my injured wrist. He seemed to realize that Jessica had been the one to hurt me. Kevin, Jessica whined, shaking his arm. Kevin turned his head to look at the radiant Jessica, and the regrets of his past life flooded back. He looked back at me, his eyes darting away. Clara, you're the smart one. Why don't you give your spot at Georgetown to Jessica? You can just retake the exam next year, right? I pressed my hand to my chest. How could it hurt this much? Crack. I slapped myself hard across the face, a final, brutal severing of the part of me that still held out hope for Kevin. Kevin didn't know why, but looking at Clara's expressionless face, a wave of panic washed over him, as if he had just lost something incredibly important. Kevin, you got into college too. Why don't you give your spot to my sister? Why do you both insist on picking on me? This was the reborn Kevin. He knew perfectly well how much I had envied my sister for finishing college in our last life, how much I regretted not going myself. Sis, Kevin's a guy. How am I supposed to take a guy's spot at college? Jessica said indignantly. What does that have to do with me? I looked at my sister. We were born from the same mother, supposed to be the closest people in the world, but our mother had raised us to be two completely different people. Kevin, Don't come looking for me again. I can't help my sister. As for you two, I paused, and though it was difficult, I said the words clearly. I wish you a long life together and many children. Kevin staggered back several steps, his face pale, looking at me with anguish, as if my blessing were the most vicious curse imaginable. 6. For the next 2 weeks, my mother was much quieter. She often looked at me as if she wanted to say something, but I always pretended not to notice. Jessica, however, took great pleasure in talking to herself in front of me about how wonderful Kevin was to her, and how great their relationship was. I ignored her ramblings and just counted down the days until I could leave. Finally, only 7 days left. I could finally escape my unloving family and go to the university I'd always dreamed of. Clara, are you even listening to me? Jessica gave me a shove. I cleaned out my ear and lazily replied, I heard you. You asked where my acceptance letter is. What is it to you? I also heard you offer to trade me Kevin for my spot at Georgetown. But I'm not interested. I laughed mockingly. So in both lifetimes, this was all Kevin was worth to Jessica. And for a woman who didn't even care about him, he had tormented me and deceived me for a lifetime. I truly felt worthless for having cared. You're not interested? What right do you have to not be interested? Jessica's face was contorted with rage, her voice shrill. Don't you like Kevin? My expression turned cold. When did I ever say I liked Kevin? If I hear that rumor going around, I'll personally rip your mouth off. Clara, that's enough, my mom said, stepping in to play peacemaker. I shrugged indifferently and watched as my mom and Jessica huddled together, whispering. I knew they were plotting something, but I just had to be careful and get through these last 7 days. But when I found myself home alone and saw Kevin appear, I realized they were trying to pull the same trick again. I grabbed a wooden club and stood cautiously at the courtyard gate, ready to bolt at the first sign of trouble. It had only been 2 weeks, but Kevin's demeanor had changed drastically. The sunny, warm guy was gone, replaced by a dark, gloomy man. Don't run. I just want to talk to you. I gripped the club tightly and warned him, you stay right there and talk. Don't come any closer, or this club won't know the difference. I had been avoiding Kevin like the plague. Kevin slammed a fist into our mud brick wall. He looked defeated and started muttering in a low voice. Jessica said you bully her at home for fun. She said her grades are actually really good, but she deliberately did poorly on tests at school because she was afraid of making you angry. She said you liked me and wanted to steal me from her. I thought you were the scheming one, that you were the one who broke us up. But why? He stopped, glancing at me to gauge my reaction. My face was half hidden behind the door, my expression unreadable. I understood what Kevin was getting at. He'd noticed how much I'd been avoiding him. Yet today, Jessica had still managed to trick him into coming here. At this point, even an idiot like Kevin would realize I had nothing to do with what happened in our past life. He had felt wronged, forced to marry me. But wasn't I also forced to marry him? Kevin slowly approached, his soulful eyes locked on me. Clara, you were the only one who was ever truly good to me. I swung the club, aiming for his head. Get out. One more step and I'll scream pervert. If he got convicted of that, his life would be ruined. Don't scream, I'm leaving. Kevin covered his head and scrambled away, choosing his future over this fight. 7. Jessica, who had been hiding in the shadows, rushed out. Why did you chase Kevin away? She demanded. I looked at her coldly, and at my mother standing behind her. I couldn't stay in this house anymore. Who knows what other twisted schemes Jessica could come up with. I had to leave immediately. My plan was to go to town and find my Uncle Ben. He was the kindest person to me in the world, 1,000 times more loving than my own mother. Uncle Ben was my father's younger brother. The two of them had been extremely close. He always said my dad had died young from overwork, just to pay for his education. So after my dad was gone, Uncle Ben sent money and ration coupons to my mom every month. My mom always claimed she was the one raising us, but we both knew the truth. It was Uncle Ben who supported me. My mother had it easy. When my dad was alive, she relied on him. When he was gone, she relied on my uncle. With me doing all the housework, she spent her days wallowing in self-pity and complaining to anyone who would listen like a broken record. In my last life, When he found out I gave my college spot to Jessica and stayed behind to get married, he tried to talk me out of it so many times. But because of Kevin, I said some terrible things to him. He finally gave up on me and left, disappointed. After being reborn, the first thing I did was hide my acceptance letter and other important documents at his house. To avoid any more trouble, I had to get out of this house now. But when I pushed on my bedroom door, it was locked from the outside with a heavy iron padlock. I heard Jessica's voice. "Clara, hand over the acceptance letter. If you don't, you're not leaving this room. How can I give you the letter if you don't open the door? Slip it under the door." Seeing that she wasn't falling for it, I told her the truth. "Jessica, the acceptance letter isn't here." Jessica laughed, a wild, triumphant sound. "Fine, if you don't have it, you don't have it. If I can't go to college, then you're not going either, Clara." 8. I'd been trapped in this dark room for 4 days. The start date for college was getting closer and closer. I paced back and forth like a caged animal. "Clara, Mom." I pounded on the door, begging her. "Mom, I'm begging you, please let me out. Let me go to college. There's no tuition for college. I won't spend any of the family's money. I'll even earn money and send it back to you." My mother was startled by my frantic tone. But Jessica, she hesitated. Seeing a glimmer of hope, I tried to persuade her. "Jessica and I are sisters. We don't hold grudges. If I do well, I'll help her too. Mom, I've never asked you for anything in my entire life. I'm only asking you this one time. Please, will you help me?" There was a long silence from the other side. Just as I was about to lose hope, I finally heard the sound of a key turning in the lock. Just then, Jessica's cold voice cut in. "Mom, if you let Clara go to college, I swear I'll kill myself. It's your choice. Me or her." My mother's hand stopped turning the key. From hope to despair in a matter of seconds. Tick-tock. I counted the seconds of my fading hope, then heard my mother's voice. "Clara, just do as your sister says." "Of course." I muttered to myself, "Mom, why can't you just be on my side for once?" "Ha. Clara, what makes you think you can compete with me?" Jessica taunted. That was the confidence that only a favored child could have. I refused to lose. I shot back, "Jessica, you think you can lock me up forever? Sooner or later, I will get to college. This house can't hold me. Even if I couldn't go this year, there was always next year, or the year after. One day, I would go to college." "You're never going to college." I froze, confused. "What do you mean?" "Exactly what it sounds like," Jessica said, drawing out her words. "Mom and I picked out a husband for you. It's Mike Wallace from the village. I'm sure you know him, right? The notorious town drunk who beats his wife. His last wife ran off after he beat her one too many times. TSK, Clara. I offered you Kevin and you refused. Are you happy now that you're marrying Mike? Mom, is this true?" I had given up on Jessica and Kevin, but I always held on to a tiny shred of hope for my mother. "Clara, maybe Mike isn't as bad as they say in the village." Ha ha ha, I clutched my stomach, laughing. The biggest joke I had ever heard in 2 lifetimes came from my own mother. "Mike isn't that bad? Then why don't you marry him? Why doesn't Jessica marry him? I'm telling you both, I'm not getting married. I'd rather die." My mother was so angry she could barely speak. Jessica led her away. Later that night, I heard Kevin's voice outside the door. "Clara, I heard what happened. Why don't you just marry me? But you still have to give your spot at Georgetown to Jessica. I've thought it over. You have good grades, so you can just retake the exam next year." I lifted my face from my knees, exhausted. "Kevin, do you think you're some kind of hero? Sacrificing yourself for Jessica, for your great love story. But from where I stand, you're just a selfish, despicable coward who only loves himself. I'm telling you, I don't like you. And I don't want to marry you." I realized in that moment that I truly felt nothing for Kevin anymore. No spark, no flutter. I had only ever fixated on him because he was the only man I'd ever really known. Kevin protested. "How can that be? How can you not like me? You hand-copied practice books for me. You helped me with my weakest subjects. You filled more than a dozen notebooks with study guides for me. How is that not love?" So I really did love him that much once. But the hardships of my previous life had wiped those memories clean. Kevin, if you think I was ever good to you, if for even 1 second you feel grateful for that, then let me out of here. No. If you leave, you'll never come back. Wait for me. I'll break up with Jessica tomorrow and I'll marry you. From day to night, and back to day again, I sat on the floor. My eyes suddenly fell on the matches and the kerosene lamp. 9. Fire. Fire. A villager shouted. My mother grabbed someone and asked anxiously, whose house is on fire? Brenda. What are you doing just wandering around? It's your house that's on fire. By the time my mother got there, she saw that half of our house was charred black, and Clara was gone. She grabbed a stunned Kevin and demanded, "Where's my Clara? Where is she? Is she okay?" Kevin pushed my mother away and said bitterly, "She's gone. And she's never coming back." Kevin blamed my mother. He felt that if she hadn't pushed me so hard, I never would have fled the village in such a desperate way. Never coming back? My mother trembled, collapsing to the ground in a daze, not caring about the burned room, or the fact that Jessica still wasn't home. It was as if a flicker of maternal love for me had suddenly, shallowly, awakened. Kevin was one of the first villagers to arrive to fight the fire. The flames were already huge, and his first instinct was to rush into the room to save me. But my Uncle Ben was faster. He had already soaked a quilt in water, wrapped himself in it, and charged into the house. When I woke up and saw my uncle, I threw my arms around him and burst into tears, truly heartbroken this time. I had only meant to burn the wooden door, but I underestimated how fast the fire would spread. The room quickly filled with smoke, and I lost consciousness. Luckily, Uncle Ben had been keeping track of my college start date, and had come to the house looking for me, saving my life by sheer coincidence. Fortunately, the fire brigade arrived quickly and prevented a major disaster. As Uncle Ben was about to lead me away, Kevin ran up, his eyes pleading. "Clara, let us talk." I agreed. Uncle Ben stood nearby, glaring at Kevin like a farmer protecting his prize pig. "Go ahead," I said, looking at the man before me. There was no love, no hate, just the calm gaze you'd give a stranger. "Clara, don't look at me like that." Kevin reached out to cover my eyes, his voice choked with sobs. "If you have nothing to say, I'm leaving." "Don't go, Clara. When you were in that fire, I realized I love you. Can you just—" "No." For the sake of him trying to save me today, I added one more thing. The way I used to feel was real, but the fact that I feel nothing now is also real. As for our past life, let us just pretend it was all a bad dream. I felt that was enough. As my uncle and I walked away, I heard Kevin's grief-stricken cry behind me, his voice calling my name. But neither of us looked back. 10. You're still smiling? Do you have any idea how close you came to dying? Uncle Ben poked my forehead, annoyed. "I'm sorry, Uncle Ben," I said, obediently admitting my mistake. In my past life, Kevin and my mother had trapped me in the village in the name of love, forcing me to do farm work, care for the elderly, and slave away for them like a workhorse. This life, I had finally escaped my cage. I was so happy. I spread my arms wide, feeling the fresh air of freedom. From now on, the world was my oyster. No one could ever trap me again. You and your crazy ideas. You're just too bold. Uncle Ben saw my face, smudged with soot, and my hair, singed and uneven. His heart ached too much to be truly angry with me. He couldn't help but blame his sister-in-law. How could you push a good kid to such a desperate point? I grinned. "See? This is why Aunt May says I get my temper from you. You're asking for it, aren't you?" Uncle Ben raised his hand, but then he started to laugh too. When we got to my uncle's house, I saw the bright, clean living room and hesitated at the door, afraid to go in. "What? Do I need to send you a formal invitation?" My aunt had already prepared a meal, and was looking at me with a warm smile. When she saw me still hesitating, she came out and pulled me inside. I spent the first truly happy day of my new life at my uncle's house. When I got up in the middle of the night, I overheard my aunt and uncle talking before I even left my room. My aunt's voice was thick with tears. "You know, I've never said a word about all the help you've given your brother's family over the years. But look at Clara today." When I hugged her, she was all skin and bones. What kind of mother raises a child like that? "All right, That's enough. The child might hear you. No, I want to be quiet. When Clara goes to college, you have to divert some of the money and coupons you send to your sister-in-law to Clara. If you don't, I'll have it out with you. I know. I will. How did I ever get so lucky to marry such a good woman? I pressed my hand over my mouth, stifling my sobs. Because of my family, my uncle's family had also been living on a tight budget for years. My cousins even chose to live in dorms at school to save money. They were so good to me. How could I possibly add to their burden? 11. Clara, time for dinner, my aunt called, knocking on the door. When there was no answer, she pushed it open. The room was empty. On the table, she found a letter and an IOU I had left. In 1977, there was no tuition for university, but I still needed money to live. I had taken $20 from the envelope my uncle gave me yesterday and left before dawn. I started college, my days poor but fulfilling. I ate plain bread rolls at every meal. I thought I could find a part-time job to support myself, but I quickly learned that reality was much harsher than I'd imagined. I was a foreign language major, a subject I had never touched in my previous life. Being reborn gave me no academic advantage. On top of that, my classmates were all incredibly hardworking, competing over who could wake up earlier and go to bed later. In that environment, I didn't have time to work. I was even dreaming about vocabulary words. After 3 months, no matter how frugal I was, the $20 was gone. I went from 3 bread rolls a day to 1, to now just drinking water. My body finally gave out, and I fainted during class. When I opened my eyes, I was surrounded by my classmates. They offered to take notes for me, told me about tutoring jobs for their relatives' kids, and so much more. Not a single person looked down on me or disliked me for being poor. It was the first time I truly understood what camaraderie felt like. We would argue until we were red in the face about whose pronunciation was better and compete relentlessly to catch up to whoever had better grades. We were all striving to improve together. My professor, Dr. Cheen, shooed away my noisy classmates and handed me an envelope. Take this as a loan from me, he said sternly. You can pay me back when you have money. If you refuse it, you're not allowed in my class. My students listened to me. I accepted everyone's kindness and wrote down every good deed in a notebook. They didn't expect anything in return, but I was the kind of person who always repays a debt, even if it was just by fetching a thermos of hot water, bringing them dinner, or doing other small things I could manage. I studied even harder, pushing myself to be worthy of their help and of myself. 3 months later, my uncle showed up at the university, dusty from travel, looking like he was about to give me a public spanking. It turned out he had been sending me money and coupons ever since I left, but because the address was wrong, everything kept getting returned. He had finally saved up some vacation days to come find me in person. It was only after I promised him I would eat properly, accepted the money and coupons he sent, and begged for forgiveness with all my charm that he reluctantly forgave me. I learned from him that he had cut the money he sent to my mother's family in half after I left. Jessica had dragged my mom to his house to cause a scene several times, but they finally backed down when my aunt threatened to cut them off completely. My uncle also told me that my mother had secretly asked about me a few times, but he had stood firm and told her nothing. He said my mother looked years older now, her hair half white, looking haggard and worn. Seeing the cold look in my eyes, my uncle gave up on the idea of trying to reconcile me with my family. He had, after all, witnessed firsthand what I had to go through just to escape that house and get an education. The day my uncle left Washington, D.C., I watched his departing figure, and tears suddenly streamed down my face. The blurry image of my father finally had a concrete form. 12. 4 years of university flew by in a whirlwind of friendly competition with my classmates. All the unhappiness of my past seemed to melt away. I grew new flesh and bone, becoming a completely different person. I was confident, optimistic, and full of life. During that time, I only ever contacted my uncle's family. I never reached out to anyone from my old home. Kevin tried to find me many times, but I refused to see him. He eventually got smarter, asking students from other departments to bring me letters, food, supplies, and even money and coupons. I returned every single item. My classmates saw how much his behavior bothered me, and started helping me block students from other departments from approaching me. Even if Kevin still wanted to find me, his persistence couldn't endlessly tax the goodwill of other students, and they eventually gave up helping him. My mother also came to the university to see me twice in those 4 years. She was not yet 50, but she looked older than she had in her 60s and 70s in my previous life. It made sense. In that life, she had me to take care of her every need. All she had to do was open her mouth. This time, her tireless workhorse had bolted. Jessica was useless, so my mother had to do everything herself. With the added stress from Jessica, it was no wonder she aged so quickly. Both times, I dismissed her curtly. The last time I told her, "Don't come looking for me again. When you reach the legal retirement age, I will send you monthly support payments according to the law. As for the bond between us as mother and daughter, it's finished. You probably won't believe this, but I've already taken care of you for one lifetime, and all I got was a lifetime of resentment. I've paid my dues." She left my school, trembling, and after that, she really did leave me in peace. After graduation, thanks to my outstanding academic performance and strong recommendations from my professors, I began a career at the State Department. 13. My work became increasingly demanding. I sent my entire monthly salary back to my uncle and his family. When they tried to refuse, I told them I'd just throw it away, so they had no choice but to accept it. I never dated. It wasn't that I was afraid, I just wasn't interested. I had no feelings about men, romance, or marriage. There were plenty of excellent, like-minded men who pursued me, but I always rejected them directly. At first, my uncle and aunt tried to persuade me, but when they saw I was happy on my own, they dropped it. After they retired, I brought them to DC to live with me, telling them it was for a change of scenery. They tried to give me all the money I had sent them over the years. I hadn't realized how much it was, nearly $300,000. I thought about it, took the money, and with help from a few friends, we pooled together $500,000 and bought them a spacious townhouse in a prime neighborhood. They complained it was a waste, but I could see the joy in their eyes after they moved in. My uncle's new hobby was walking in the park and chatting with old DC locals. My aunt, meanwhile, started a second career, opening a small business in the city. When my aunt told me she wanted to start a business, she kept glancing at me, afraid I'd be embarrassed. I just smiled. "As long as you're happy, I'll always be your biggest supporter." I would never forget the warmth of her embrace that day. I was afraid to dirty her living room floor. Later, when my cousins were grown and ready to work, I strongly encouraged them to come to DC. The opportunities were better here, and selfishly, I wanted to keep my uncle and aunt by my side. Even if my job meant I couldn't see them every day, just knowing there were people in this city waiting for me to come home was enough to ground me. My opinion carried a lot of weight in my uncle's family, and my cousins took my advice seriously, moving to DC to build their careers. As long as it didn't violate any professional ethics, I did everything in my power to help them with housing, living expenses, and their jobs. They told everyone I was like a real sister to them. I would just smile and listen. You reap what you sow. For my uncle and aunt, I was the harvest. I think, in this life, I finally found my peace. 14. Aunt Brenda, are you home? Brenda was sitting in front of the television. She never knew when Clara might appear, so she had resorted to the simple method of watching TV whenever she had a spare moment. "Yes, coming," she called out. Already showing her age, she used a cane to slowly make her way to the yard. Susie looked at the dilapidated house and couldn't understand it. This old woman, they said, had favored her younger daughter when she was young and driven away her capable older one. The younger daughter married a college boy from the same village. The older the woman got, the more she seemed to miss the daughter who left. She insisted on staying in this broken-down house, saying she didn't want her older daughter to come back one day and not be able to find her home. Susie knew about the capable older daughter. You could often see her on TV, speaking on behalf of the country. Well, all you could say was that pitiful people have their reasons for being hated. "Aunt Brenda, here's the monthly support payment your daughter Clara sent you." Brenda took it and carefully tucked it into her pocket. This was her only connection to Clara. After Brenda turned 60, Clara had kept her word and started sending money every month. "Aunt Brenda, That room of yours has been burned out for almost 20 years. Once you have the money, you should really hire someone to fix it. Yes, I will. Susie sighed in frustration. No matter what she said to Brenda, the answer was always yes, but whether she would actually do it was another story. Not long after Susie left, a coarse-looking Jessica kicked open the rickety gate and yelled, "Hey, old woman! Did Clara send you money again today? Give it to me." Still watching TV? You can watch all you want, Clara's not coming back. After screaming her fill, Jessica snatched the money and left satisfied. Brenda just repeated numbly, "It's all karma. This is karma." Jessica took the money, spent it all with her lover, and then swaggered back home. "Where have you been?" "None of your business." Jessica looked at the disheveled Kevin with disgust. Kevin saw the hickey on Jessica's neck, and a vein pulsed in his forehead. He grabbed her. "You cheating whore. I'm divorcing you." But the emaciated Kevin was no match for the overweight Jessica. She pinned him to the ground and beat him. When she was done, Jessica spat on him and walked away without a backward glance. Kevin lay motionless on the floor, thinking back on his miserable life. He couldn't understand how things had ended up like this. Because he couldn't have Clara, he married Jessica. Jessica turned his family's life upside down and drove his parents to an early grave from anger. He gave up on himself, stopped working, stopped going out, and just stayed home fighting with Jessica. But Jessica, who had died young in his last life, seemed to get healthier and stronger from their constant arguments in this one, while his own health deteriorated. Without Clara, he was nothing. And Clara, without him, was thriving. "Clara, come back, come back. I don't want that rotten Jessica anymore. I only want to be with you." Kevin reached a hand toward the blazing sun, but it remained silent, hanging high and indifferent in the sky. The end.